So we were in the topic of junction field effect transistors. So we understood what are field effect transistors, why they are named so, how they are different from bipolar junction transistors. By the way, I hope you understood why it is named field effect transistor, because the transistor action is getting driven due to the gate source voltage field that is getting created. So that field, that electrical field, electrostatic field, is controlling the drain current. So that is why it is called field effect transistor. We will also learn another field effect transistor, which is the MOSFET, and there you will also see the same principle of field, an electric field affecting the transistor action would be there. However, there would be some difference. That is why JFET is one device and MOSFET is another device. So that difference would be there. Now so let us go ahead. We were in the gate bias. So we studied the gate bias, and there we understood that we mostly use this gate bias for making the transistor, making the JFET behave as a electronic switch. That is, its Q point will either be in the ohmic region or the saturation region or in the cutoff region. So how we are able to ensure that? So if you are giving the VGS equals to 0, then you will have some ID, whatever value of ID you are getting, ID saturation you call it, that would be simply VDD by RD, because at that time your VDS is like 0 you are assuming. So that is why it is VDD by RD, and that value is somewhere here, and that has to be much less than IDSS. Only then we can ensure that we are in the ohmic region. So that ensures that we are in the ohmic region. How we can ensure this? How we can have a control on the ID sat current? VDD is already set up, but RD is in our hand. So by having a very high value of RD here, we can ensure that this current is quite less. However, there is some current. So this is the current when VGS is equals to 0, and when we are going for cutoff, the cutoff will happen when we have made VGS less than the minus V pinch, that is some pinch of voltage, or the VGS cutoff voltage is there. So VGS has to be less than that. So when we give such a negative gate source voltage, then we will be able to establish that. So that is being controlled by this VGG voltage here, as you can see. So this voltage is going to control the gate voltage, because there is no current in this gate resistance. This is very important in any field effect transistors. We will see that we always start our analysis with an inherent assumption that there is no gate current. The gate current is 0. So that principally makes this voltage come here. Okay. So the next bias that we would study, and this is the bias where we are setting up the JFET in the active region. So this is the self bias. So now we wish to make the JFET act as an amplifier for amplification of AC signals, whereas AC signals are not here present right now. So we are just setting up the bias, we are setting up the Q point. So the Q point needs to be in the active region. How we are able to do that? This is called self bias, because the VDD voltage biases the transistor itself. So there is no additional biasing voltage VGG required. So that is why it is named self bias. How it works, let us see. So when you have some current flowing in this path, so since you have some voltage here, let us assume in the beginning that there is a current. So if there is a current id rs id, then what would happen, there would be a potential vs here appearing. So this is the point s. So this is 1 minute, this is not working for some reason. Okay, now it is working. Yes. So this is your S here, this is your G, and this is your D. These are the points. So Vs is what? Vs is IDRS. So ID is flowing like this. ID is flowing like this. So Vs is IDRS, but we need to understand what is VGS. So that is our bias, that is what is the gate source voltage. Gate source voltage we need to know. We have only known the source voltage. What is the gate voltage? Please understand that there is no gate current. So when the gate current is not there, the potential at this point of the resistance comes at this point also. So the Vg is basically 0. This point is grounded. So Vg is basically 0, Vs is IDRS. So VGS is basically minus IDRS. VGS is minus IDRS. And since IDRS is a positive quantity, you have your VGS as a negative quantity. And that is what is setting up the Q point. So VGS is not 0 here, it is some negative quantity. Of course, we need to maintain some limit to this ID current so that VGS is not more negative than VGS cutoff. So we have to make this VGS value higher than the VGS cutoff. So we have to keep some control on this current ID. And how we can do that? We can there is the resistance RD also here, there is a resistance RS also here. So using all these things, we can keep a control on this VGS biasing that is getting produced here. Now what they are saying, so the Q point is, when it is in the active region, the Q point is normally set with RS equals to RDS. So this is the RS, which is an external resistor you are connecting to the transistor. RDS is what? RDS, you remember, RDS is the drain source resistance when your VGS is equals to 0. That is the RDS. Okay, the drain source resistance when VGS equals to 0, and that was like VDS by IDSS. So IDSS value is always given to you from the data sheet. RDS you can calculate, and your RS is a resistance that you are putting here in the self bias configuration. You make it equal to RDS. Normally we are setting it like this. So how now we analyze what is the Q point? So I have put RS equal to RDS, but what about my VDS and ID? What are these values? These are the values which give me the Q point. So how do you check that? So this RDS is going to determine your load line. This RDS is going to determine your load line. So you draw the load line in the ID VGS transconductance curve. This is the transconductance curve. You draw the load line in this curve with RD equal to RDS. So you draw this load line with RD equal to RDS, and the intersection point will give you the Q point. And this RD, when you have this RD equal to RDS, then what happens, since then you are basically you are coming to a point where you are having this value VGS of an IDSS. If your current was IDSS, your VGS value would be VGS off. So you take these 2 points also, you can actually take these 2 points also and connect from the origin to this point, and that would intersect at the at some point in the transconductance curve, and that is your Q point. So you have to find out the value of this point from this curve, and that would give you the Q point. Another way to do it is simply use the relationship, the equation, the square law equation for the transconductance curve. You simply use that, and this equation of this line which begins at origin and ends at VGS of IDSS, you use these two equations and solve for your ID and VGS. So that is also something that one can do. So the main important thing that you need to remember in self bias is that this Q point is normally set with RDS as the resistance. Now the next one is the voltage divider bias. In the voltage divider bias, it is a similar thing as we have done in the BJT. So there is a voltage divider like thing in the input side. Now it is in the BJT we assume that IB is 0, and here the assumption is more strong. So IG is 0, and so the VG that is getting developed at this point is simply the voltage divider. By the voltage divider rule you can find that out. So this is the VG. So once you know the VG, you have to come to VS in order to calculate the current flowing in this branch. So VS is nothing but VG minus VGS. So VGS is, some VGS is here. We really don't know what this VGS is, but we have written down it as a variable. So VS is VG minus VGS. So what is the ID flowing in this? What is the drain current? The drain current is also the source current. So ID is nothing but VS by RS. ID is nothing but VS by RS. Now if your VG is much greater than VGS, remember that VGS is a very small quantity. It is like the pinch of voltage is around 4 volts or so, minus 4 volt is a VGS cutoff, around that range this lies. So VGS is between 0 to 4 volts, maybe 5 volts at the most. So we may be able to set up our VDD in such a way, we make VDD so high, and we set up this R2 and R1 in such a way that VG is quite high with respect to VGS. If we can set it up in this manner, then VG is much greater than VGS, and we can neglect the contribution of VGS in the current ID. So this is an assumption that we are making here in the voltage divider bias. What it gives us? It gives us a very stable Q point. The ID becomes constant irrespective of VGS. Irrespective of changes in this input current, in the VGS, irrespective of changes in the VGS, your ID becomes a very solid ID. So the Q point becomes quite stable. Now let us see the output side equation. In the output side you have VDD minus IDRD minus VDS minus IDRS equal to 0. So you can calculate what is your VDS from here. VDS is VDD minus IDRD plus RS. ID you have already calculated, and now you can calculate VDS. So this is ID VDS will give you the Q point, and this equation, with this equation you can get the load line also. So in the ID VDS characteristics, which is the output characteristics, you can plot this equation which gives you the load line, and that intersects this curve at a certain point. So let us assume it intersects here in the ohmic region. If it intersects, then your ID RDS, this is a voltage drop here, ID RDS. So if the intersection is in the ohmic region, then your VDS Q point is basically ID RDS, ID Q point into RDS. But we don't want the Q point to be in the ohmic region. We don't want the Q point to be in the ohmic region. We want the Q point in the active region. So we should ensure that our VDS or VDS Q point is much greater than this ID RDS. Remember, the RDS value is supplied, or you can easily calculate it from the data sheet. Okay, so whatever value of current you calculate from this equation Vg by Rs, you multiply it with RDS, and you are calculating VDS also from this equation. You compare. So what is the VDS? Is the VDS less than IDQ RDS? Then obviously it is in the ohmic region. What we need to have the Q point in the active region is that this VDS should be much greater than ID RDS. This RDS, I hope you remember, this RDS is the resistance of the ohmic region only. In the active region, the resistance is infinite. The resistance is only here in the ohmic region. So we multiply the current with the resistance, some value we get, and our VDS must be greater than that. Only then our Q point is in this side of this point. And another thing to note is that the VDS cannot exceed VDD. So VDS must also be less than VDD. So whatever is the Q point value of VDS that we find out from this equation, that should lie between VDD and IDQ RDS. Then only we can ensure that it is in the active region. Now this is a mathematical thing, but for an engineer, when we are doing setting up a circuit, how to ensure this without going into so much calculations? What you see, we have to only ensure that VDS is as high as possible. Of course, it will not be greater than VDD because it cannot exceed VDD by the arrangement of the circuit, because VDS is only a drop within this loop which is activated by VDD. So VDD is the source here, VDD is the input voltage, and VDS is a drop in between. So VDS cannot exceed VDD, but we can make VDS as high as possible by ensuring that VDD is as large as possible. So VDD has to be very high. That is what we are seeing even in the first these two blue equations. If we want to keep Vg very high, only because we want to neglect this effect of VGS, we have to keep VDD very high. So again, you can see here in these two equations also, the important fact was that we need to maintain VDD high. Here also we need to maintain VDD high in order to set up the Q point in the active region. So this is the final takeaway from self bias. So in self bias, we need to have the VDD very high. Now if we want to calculate the Q point more accurately, then we have to include the effect of this VGS. So ID is not Vg by Rs simply, but Vg minus VGS by Rs. So there is a relationship between ID and VGS, which gives you a load line in the ID VGS transconductance curve, transconductance plot. So if you plot this load line with following this equation, if you plot this load line, you will see that it cuts the transconductance curves. Now this transconductance curve, there are like maximum transconductance curve and minimum transconductance curve. So this can this load line can intersect them at these 2 points Q1 and Q2. So there is some variation in the VGS that you will observe, but the variation in ID is very small. You can see the variation between Q1 and Q2 along the vertical axis is very small, and along the horizontal axis there is some variation. So no matter whether the VGS is shifting, the ID will be remaining very constant, much will not have much changes in ID. So again we are seeing that even if we use a more accurate evaluation of the Q points, we can see that the ID remains quite stable, which is what we intend from the active regions Q point. So the output current remains stable. Another biasing configuration, this is called the two supply source bias, because there are two supplies, you can see VDD as well as minus VSS. So this is minus VSS. So what happens, your VG or I can say that this is VGS, this potential is VGS. Now this is ground, which is 0, so VG is 0. So this potential Vs is nothing but VGS, right? So what is the current in RS resistance, RS resistor? This voltage minus this voltage divided by RS by simple Ohm's law. So it is VSS minus VGS divided by RS. VSS minus VGS divided by RS, because we assume the current direction in this direction. So it is like this. So ID is equals to VSS by RS now. So you see, in the previous one voltage divider, we used a very large VDD to create a VG here, which is very high, and that was overriding any changes in VGS. Now we don't need to do that. We can simply connect a VSS source here, and we can keep this source large enough so that any changes, any fluctuation in VGS is absorbed in this VSS potential. So in the same manner we can keep ID almost constant. And again from the output equation you can calculate that VDS would be VDD plus VSS minus ID RD plus RS. So this is a total potential, so total source potential in this loop, and VDD plus VSS, and you have another drop ID RD and ID RS, which has to be subtracted from here. So this gives you the load line. The rest of the thing is as earlier, so you can use this load line to plot in the output characteristics curve. You have to only ensure that this VDS is high enough, and that high enough you can ensure by keeping your VDD and VSS high enough, so that this is in the active region. Similarly, if you wish to have a more accurate analysis, you can plot this equation in the transconductance curve, and again a similar curve would appear like this, where you will see that ID is almost constant even if your VGS is varying. Now a current source bias. So here it is called current source bias because it is setting up a very constant current. So you will see that the ID here does not depend on a variable voltage like VGS. So even if VGS is varying, the ID is dependent on constant voltages. So that is why it is called a constant source bias. Current source bias. So if you really want to use the JFET as a current source, then you should go for this sort of biasing. Here what is happening, at the source side you are connecting a BJT. So when you are doing that, the current in this RE current, the current in this resistance RE, which is the emitter current, that is simply governed by this voltage VBE and VEE. VE is a constant, VBE is also a constant, VB is the potential, it is the diode forward bias voltage drop in the diode, that is a constant. So ID is this is the ID flowing here, which is the same as the IE. So ID equals to IE, which is equals to VEE minus VBE by RE. So the current through the JFET remains completely constant. So you can use this arrangement as a current source. Now if you have to analyze the amplifiers, so we have analyzed the DC biasing, lot of different DC biasing, but now we also have to analyze the amplification that we can obtain for a small AC signal using a JFET. So for the amplification we are using a AC circuit, and we have to consider some AC equivalent circuit of the JFET. So what is the AC equivalent circuit of a JFET? It is very simple. It is more simpler than the AC equivalent circuit. There are many circuits that we studied, 3 different ones. This is only a single one, and it is very simple. So what is there at the output? Of course you will have a constant current that you are having always at the output, and that current is dependent on the VGS voltage, gate source voltage. So whatever VGS is there, you are having it multiplied by some GM. By some GM you are multiplying that. So this is called the transconductance parameter GM. That is the output current by the input voltage, gate source voltage. Since it is a conductance parameter, it is measured in Siemens, and it is normally in the order of microsiemens. So GM is in the order of microsiemens. You multiply this with a VGS and you get what is ID, whatever is the output current you are getting. Now RGS is what? RGS is the input side gate source resistance, and that is very high, as we have already discussed this. This is very high. It is in the range of 100 mega ohms. So this RGS is very high. So this makes it useful, makes the JFET useful to be connected to any circuit without loading that circuit. This is an important concept, loading a circuit and not loading a circuit. So when you put a load in a network, if that load draws a very high current, then that particular load is actually loading the network. It is termed in this way. So a device, if a device is connected to a network, if the device draws a very high current from the network, it is considered to be a high load, a high loading. It is considered to be high loading of the network. If the device does not draw appreciable current from the network, then it is termed that this device is not loading the network. It is not loading the network because it is not drawing any current from the network. So if the input impedance of that device is very high, then it will not draw appreciable current from the network to which it is connected. So this sort of devices will not load the network, and it is very useful in a lot of different ways. So what happens actually, if a device loads the network, any signal passing from the network to this device will lose its strength appreciably if there is high loading due to this connection of the device. Now for amplifiers, we don't wish the signal to be amplified to change or to lose its strength. So for amplifiers, input impedance being very high is a very desirable characteristic, because whatever signal you wish to amplify, you don't want that signal to change appreciably due to the connection of the amplifier, and that only happens if the input impedance of the amplifier is very high. So this is the thing. Now here you can see the JFET input impedance is very high. Now these are some of the relationships which one can obtain from parameters given in the data sheet. In the data sheet, what you are given with? You are given with the IDSS, you are given with VGS off. So there is a relationship between a parameter called GMO. GMO is the transconductance when VGS is equals to VGS off. So when VGS is equals to VGS off, GMO is the transconductance, and that transconductance you can calculate using this relationship, and that you can fit in here and find out a GM for a particular VGS value. So your Q point would set up some VGS and ID. So this for this VGS, what would be the transconductance that you have to find out? This you will utilize here in this AC equivalent circuit. This GM is what you are utilizing here. That comes from the Q point. So it is dependent very much on the Q point. Okay. Sorry, GMO is the transconductance with VGS equals to 0. I thought I said VGS equals to VGS off, but no. GMO is a transconductance with VGS equals to 0. That means gate source short circuited transconductance value, and that is what you are using. You can calculate it from this relationship, and you can use it to get the transconductance at any other value of VGS. So this is the AC JFET AC equivalent circuit that we will use in order to understand all these different amplifiers that we have. And here in the JFET discussion, actually you will see that we will not go much into derivation, but we will the derivation sometimes it is very easy, very obvious, but sometimes it is not so obvious. So there we will state the results directly. So these things the amplifiers will be taken up. We will take it up in the next week. So I will end the class here. So there were a few things that we discussed, some of the biasing, DC biasing configurations we discussed, and we discussed the AC equivalent circuit of the JFET. So there is not much more in the syllabus, and I would not prefer to go into very advanced topics at this stage, because not normally we don't cover that also in this subject. Though in the book you will find many other chapters at the end which deals with many different topics, but the idea of this particular course is to introduce you with these analog devices and make you comfortable in doing solving the networks which are made using these analog devices. So you solving the electronic circuits, getting the different voltage and current values at different parts of the network when such transistors, diodes and these sort of electronic devices are placed in the network. So that is the intention of this course, and we have covered already diode and BJT. BJT was a major portion of the entire course, and if you go back and study the BJT, you will have an understanding of how we are actually dealing with this subject. The same things we are applying, the same in a similar manner approximations are getting applied. We are trying to get the Q point, we are solving for the amplification in the active region. So the same things, the same ideas can be applied to any transistor. Only the particular characteristics or the essential features of a particular transistor has to be understood, have to be kept in mind. After that, it is the repetition of the same thing. So the circuit analysis, everything you are doing in the tutorials also, in practice on your own also you are able to do it, and I have shown you the many different configurations and how we are approaching each of the configurations. That is important to understand. So there is not much remaining in the course now, and we will cover the amplifiers of JFET, and then we will move on to another device which is called the MOSFET, and again we will analyze some amplifiers and biasing of the MOSFET, which is very similar to JFET. So there will not be much to analyze also in there, like nothing new to do there, but understanding the MOSFET is something that we should try to understand in a better way, because MOSFET works in a different like its basics are a bit different, and it is interesting also. And MOSFET is a very like it is the device which is actually has helped the modern day computers to emerge. So modern day computers are there only because of MOSFETs. So the capacity of MOSFETs to switch in a very high frequency is what drives the computers nowadays. The computers are devices where there are lots of switches which are switching at very high frequencies. The computation is getting done, you know this computer speeds are in gigahertz, several gigahertz. So what this gigahertz is actually, the gigahertz is the rate at which the transistors within the hardware of the computer are able to switch. That rate is this gigahertz. So high rate they are able to switch. So so the MOSFETs and advances on MOSFETs are able to do that. So we will study the basic MOSFET, and that would complete the course related to analog electronics. So with that I would like to end today's lecture also. So if you have any particular question you can ask, otherwise we can end the lecture now. Okay, so I think it is fine. So you please read the book also on JFETs. There are a lot of interesting things in the book also which we don't cover in the class. So you can go in there, a background of how JFETs are developed, many different other types of uses also, and a lot of different solved numerical examples you will also get in the book. Okay, thank you then.